Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. Are Mondays ever happy? Well, this Monday is happy because we released a new Adobe XD update that just dropped this morning, and I'll touch on that a little bit. But good morning to everyone who's joining us. We have Ann, Sakshi, AJ, Igor, Dare, a lot of the awesome usuals that are joining us. We have Adobe Live, GusSpot. I can see GusSpot today, live from San Francisco. Last week I was in Los Angeles. Today I am in our brand new studio in San Francisco. Super excited to be here, kicking off day 5 of the XD and Photoshop Daily Challenge. And if I hop over to my screen, we have the awesome DJ Paco over here as well, controlling all the fun stuff behind the scenes. And here's where you're going to want to go. You're going to go to behance.net/daily creative challenge, and we have the Photoshop and XD icons at the top. And the reason for that is we wanted to add Photoshop to the mix for these last 2 weeks, because we've noticed a lot of designers who are using Photoshop for their UI and UX workflows. And we really feel that XD can provide something a little bit more than Photoshop. And we don't want necessarily people to completely switch away from Photoshop, because that's super difficult to do. But we want people to kind of look at what else you can do with your UI and UX designs. And hopefully over the last week and the next few days, you're gonna see even more prototyping, global edits, a lot of different cool stuff that you've definitely been seeing. So if you're on this page and you haven't registered yet, hit that register button right here so you're notified every single day when we do release a new template, just like this morning. And I'll be here 8:30 a.m. every single morning, trying to wake up, but here I am with all you amazing people. Jason is joining us, and Natalia, Tim, our awesome moderator. Welcome to everyone who's just joining. And if you are taking part in these challenges, make sure to use the keyword XD Daily Challenge on Behance so we can find your stuff and feature it. Every single day, I look back at the previous day and I look at designs that really stand out, that do something a little bit differently, and try to feature them and talk about them on each episode. And then on Friday, when we're all finished with all the challenges, we're just gonna go crazy and show off a bunch of different designs that have come in over the last 2 weeks. And you have until December 21st, this Friday, to complete them all. And even afterwards, you can definitely go back, revise them, have some fun with it, post it on Behance. And then down here, you can download XD for free. Again, update just shipped this morning. And you can join us on Slack. And if I hop over here to Slack, we have 9,800 people. We're so close to 10,000. I think we're gonna hit 10,000 by Friday. Let's make sure that happens. We have an introduction section. You can introduce yourself, tell us about what you do. We have a help section if you run into issues or if you have questions with either the new update or just anything in general. Design feedback, announcements, which is where Lee, who is also over here to the right, posts our fantastic templates that are released every single day and when we go live. So that is our Slack channel. Definitely jump in there, have some fun, talk with. There's also a link right up here above my head, XD Slack, bit.ly/XD Slacks. Thank you, Paco. And the reason you want to use the hashtag going over to Behance is that we're able to search and find all of your amazing stuff. So let me just highlight quickly a few of them that came in over the last few days. And this is particularly the parallax challenge that we talked about and showed on Friday. So this one is from Remy. Let me click on this. It's a little bit small. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And it's a cool little parallax effect. And again, if you're not familiar, it's kind of where you have multiple objects that are part of the same image moving at different speeds. So it kind of creates that really interesting effect. And Remy did a great job, especially at the beginning, where the woman in the foreground was moving at a different speed than the mountains in the background. So good job, Remy. We have Pretty, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, who is in the chat right now. And if I play back her amazing design, she has this really cool navigation bar at the bottom, and then there is a parallax effect when she does click on one of the items. There it goes. Clouds moving away from the scene, kind of revealing those beautiful mountains in the background. So really cool stuff. We also have Maj, who created this really neat looking Egyptian parallax effect. The mountains in the foreground move a little bit differently than the mountains in the background. And then the text came up from the back. really cool. It's a mobile design, so it's not a desktop design, but I think it turned out really nicely. And then we have Igor, who also was featured on Friday. He kind of took his designs to another level and made, as you'll see in a second, when he clicks on one of the cards, the clouds and the water using a time transition also move, which is really cool. I think he's might be in the chat. I definitely saw him on Slack this morning. And then do we have one more? We do have one more from Gladstone. He's also in the chat quite often. Another really cool parallax effect. Nice stuff. And very quickly, before we jump into today's challenge, I do want to showcase a few of the new updates very quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time because we want to get to the challenge. But there's a few things that we did update this morning. So if you haven't updated Adobe XD, definitely hop into the Creative Cloud app and do that. We have a new share button at the top right-hand corner of our interface. And one of the big items is that it'll allow you to share your documents to the cloud, up there to the magical cloud. And new documents by default will be saved in the cloud. You can of course save it locally if you're not connected to the internet. But the big benefits of that, autosave, which is huge. So as you're editing, it automatically saves your stuff. So if it crashes or your computer crashes, power outage, power goes out, whatever it might be, that work will be saved up there in the cloud. You'll be able to access these across multiple devices. So if you're working on a laptop, you go over to your desktop, it's there, you can continue working, and you can access the documents offline. And you can also do a little bit of collaboration right now if you're sharing it with multiple people. You can kind of edit your documents. One person will have to edit, save it, and then the other person will have to edit. However, this is kind of paving the path for live collaboration, which will hopefully be released at some point, maybe this year, maybe next year, I'm not sure. But that stuff is kind of in the works. There's a lot of cool stuff. We also have search. So let me go over to this document here. Something I'm working on, but across all these artboards, I have, let's say, the word space and these little space layers, right? So just like we did have in the assets panel, we also have search in our layers panel now. So I can just search the word space and it'll search all the layers across all of those documents. And I can filter this stuff by images, shapes, and text. And finally, we also have object flip. So if you want to flip an object, do I have an object here? I might. Right over here to the right, you can flip it horizontally or vertically. So cool stuff. And just to show off very quickly, I was working on that challenge as well. And I kind of took what I was working on Friday, added a cool, I simulated a hover effect with a time transition, and then it'll go over to the middle one and do a parallax effect. So there we go. So we're ready to go. We're ready to dive into today's challenge. So let me hop over to Photoshop. And here is the challenge for today. It's to design and prototype a mobile chat application. So you'll want to open this in Adobe XD, add some color, content, and then prototype this using some features that aren't in Photoshop, like fixed elements or repeat grids, animated interactions, and that sort of thing. So what we kind of want to do is, create something kind of like Facebook Messenger or any of those other chat applications. And we'll be using some elements like repeat grids. We'll also be touching on a plugin, one of my favorite plugins, UI Faces, to make some of this stuff easier. Because what we found is in Photoshop, creating lists and repeated elements is a little bit time consuming. For something like this, I have this first element created. What I would have to do at this point is kind of duplicate this downwards and then change the text here. We have to drag in a new image, a new face into this bubble, make sure it's clipped, and then duplicate this process down, do it again, and just basically keep doing this process over and over and over again. It gets a little bit time consuming. And then when you want to actually bring this thing to life, Photoshop has a timeline feature at the bottom. It's not as easy to use. And Samuel's saying I entered the matrix. I did. I live in the matrix. And then for things like keyboards, if you want to illustrate what a keyboard looks like, you'd have to duplicate the entire artboard, place the keyboard on there. But with overlays in Adobe XD that you'll see in a second, you can just have a little keyboard, and then you'll be able to use an overlay. So let me hop over to Finder. Here is that exact same chat application that all of you have that you can drag right into Adobe XD. Drag it in. There we go. Boop. Perfect. And if you are on Windows, the drag probably won't work, so you'll have to go to the File menu, go to Open, and then find that PSD file, and then you will have all your fancy layers and your groups, as you can see over here to the left. So how do we actually edit this thing? So the first screen, we have our conversations, and we might want to very quickly create a repeated grid down this artboard. So what we can do is, with this entire group selected, which consists of a little circle on the left, the name and the message, and I can simply press Command or Control R, or over here to the right, we have the repeat grid button. If I press that, we have these lovely handles on the right and the bottom. And if I just drag this downwards, I have now a repeated element. And I can move my mouse in between any of them and space them out a little bit more. And if I want to duplicate them horizontally, I can do that as well. But I'm not going to. But one thing I do want to do is hop into one of the elements, and something like message from a friend, right? If I start typing, oops, I want to make sure that it's aligned to the left, and move this over, and you're noticing they all update at the same time. But I can start typing, and because if I click off of it, because that text box and because the repeat grid was initially very small, I'm gonna have to make some changes to this. So I can simply go in, grab my handle, move this over, and just drag this over, just so I have some space. And I can collapse this a little bit. And all of these update very quickly in real time. And even with repeat grids, you can easily go in, let's say this might be John, make sure to line this to the left, and it all updates. This will be Michelle. You get the idea. So you can easily do that. And like I showed, I believe it was in the first challenge, you can also drag in text files directly into a repeat grid. So if you have a list of names, you can very easily drag that in. You can drag in messages and things like that. Chris Cannon's good morning from Utah. He's actually at the airport right now, getting on a plane to come sit right beside me tomorrow afternoon. So you better get here quickly, Chris. But what I really want to show off is a plugin called UI Faces. So you might want to add a bunch of faces inside of this repeat grid, or this repeated element, that kind of make this look a little bit more lively and real. So now at the moment, this plugin does not support repeat grids, unless they've updated it, but I don't think they did. But if I go to Discover Plugins, and I look up, let's say UI Faces, there it is. It's made by Alexander. I'm going to install that and install just like that. Now you'll notice if I go to UI Faces, it's probably going to tell me, let me just make sure. Yeah, it's going to tell me it does not support repeat grids. So at the moment, you have to right click and ungroup the grid. And I'm simply going to select one of the elements and apply a face. Now what I can do is also select multiple elements. Let's see if this works. We might have to ungroup them. Yeah. So what we'll have to do, we'll have to ungroup all of these. Just like this. We're gonna right click and ungroup. And make sure to select all the circles. And then if I go up to the top to Plugins, UI Faces, we have a bunch of different options. So if you want to limit it by age, I'll keep it at 18 to 24. Both genders is fine. Let's say we want them all happy. That's fine. Randomize, sure. And we'll have them from Unsplash. And then we'll apply faces. And it'll basically just populate our little circles with happy faces, which is great. Which saves a lot of time. And if you're dealing with a lot of elements, like little circles and little squares and things like that, it will save you a lot of time. Now you're probably noticing that this kind of jumped off onto the pasteboard, and that what happened was, because I have it ungrouped, we want to actually, you know what, let's delete them. Make it easy. But what we would have to do is select all these elements, group them, and then if I grab these and duplicate it, it will not go onto the pasteboard. And I can go back to UI Faces, add another, and there we go. Perfect. So let's do the same thing for the next artboard. Yeah, UI Faces is fantastic. So for here, we're going to duplicate this downwards. Again, repeat grid. A lot of friends on this friends list. Make this a little bit larger. I'll group the entire thing so nothing goes onto the pasteboard when I ungroup all these elements. So I'm going to ungroup the repeat grid and ungroup these just so I can get to my little circles. There we go. UI faces. And give it a second. You can do it. Come on, XD. Nope. I must have missed something. Let's try that one more time. Plugins, UI faces. Ah, okay. Apply. There we go. So it's as easy as that to create a friends list with random faces from Unsplash or any of the other services, and that's that. Now over here we have this keyboard element, right? So what I want to show off is how overlays work in something to this extent. So we have this chat view, and instead of duplicating the entire artboard, we can just have an artboard with a keyboard. So I'm going to actually delete all the elements except the keyboard on this artboard. Move this up to the top, and then just shrink this keyboard down like this. So we have basically just a keyboard. We're saving a lot of space, and this can be used on any artboard. So if, let's say on this artboard here, I want a user to be able to tap on the chat bar at the bottom, and it's going to slide up a keyboard. So let me go into prototype mode, select the chat bar at the bottom, and then drag the handle over to the keyboard artboard. It's going to be a tap trigger because that's what I want my user to do. Just tap on the chat bar. And instead of a transition or auto animate, it's actually going to be an overlay. And I can move it anywhere I want. And let's say I wanted to slide up from the bottom. It's going to automatically position it at the bottom of the artboard. And we'll have it, let's say, ease out. 0.4 seconds. And if I play that and tap on the chat bar, it slides up from the bottom. And if I press it again, it basically reverses that. And that can be used across any artboard. So if I'm in the contacts screen, and let's say, for example, I want someone to tap on the search button, search icon at the top, that's what it's called. I can drag that to the same keyboard artboard. I don't have to duplicate anything else. It's going to remember all the settings from the last one, and I can simply just do that. So it's a nice, overlays is a nice way of repeating some elements throughout your document and saving a lot of space so you don't have to duplicate artboards over and over again. Now, what can we do to actually bring some of this prototype to life? Let's say we want, this to kind of slide over. When someone presses on contacts, it slides over and then the contacts slide in. So what we would do in that case, there's a few things we can do. We can do something very simply, right? We can just click on contacts, drag that over to the right, and instead of dealing with any sort of auto animate, we can use a transition, and we can have that slide. Let's say we'll have it slide right. So when we tap on contacts, it slides over. And we can also change that to, let's say, slide left or push left if we wanted to. And that pushes over to the left. And then we can link conversations back over to the right or the left. And we'd probably want that reversed, so that would be push right. Now what you're noticing is that in both cases, all the elements, like the bar at the top, the search icon, which way is it? That one. The fixed element, which is not fixed yet, they're also moving. So if you're okay with this, then these simple transitions would definitely work. But if you want all that stuff to stay in place as you're transitioning, you would want to use auto animate. So in that case, things get a little bit more complicating, but not too bad. So let's do this. So what we're going to do is make sure all of these elements are on both artboards. So I'm going to name this. This will be conversations. This will be friends list, or just friends. And we want both of these on both artboards. So I'm going to copy friends, go over to this artboard, paste it, and I'm going to move it over to the left. And you're going to notice it's going to snap onto a different artboard because it's not grouped with anything. So I'm going to, let's say, group all of this stuff. Name it con for now, paste our friends list, and I can move it over outside of the artboard, and it will not go over. It did go over, oh, because I didn't put it in the group. That helps. There we go. Now it will not go over to another artboard. I can decrease the opacity, or I can just leave it like that. And on this artboard, I want to make sure to have the exact same group. So I'm going to group it, name this con, and I want to duplicate this, conversations, place it inside of this group, and move this over to the right, to the left. And then because this bar here is the same name across both artboards, it will actually move as well. And none of the other elements will move. So back in prototype mode, if I click on contacts, this time, instead of a simple transition, we actually want auto animate. And what's going to happen is it's going to take the conversations, move them over to the left, and it's going to take the friends list and move it over to the left as well. So they kind of all move together. And then conversations is going to link back to this artboard and auto animate as well. So let's see if this works. Press contacts, it slides over, conversations, and you're noticing all the other elements are staying in place. The menu at the top, the messages, and the little icon at the bottom, that's all staying in place. So, and that's important because if we had, let's say we drag this artboard down a little bit, so we had scrolling turned on over here to the right. Let me decrease this a little bit, make sure the scrolling is the same size as the other artboard, just like that. And make sure that fixed elements is turned on for this button, right? And fixed element is not there. Where is it? It disappeared. But when you had fixed elements turned on, that button would not move. But for some reason, it's not there. Could be a bug, I don't know. And then finally, what we want to do is link up the chat view to the conversations. So let's say this one here, click on this guy's face, it goes over to here. It's going to be chat, tap, auto animate, and we want to make sure that all of this is also, so this whole message, we want to make sure that is also part of this artboard. So we're going to paste it, put it inside of this folder, move this over to the right, and back over here, again, we want to make sure that all of this is on this in the same group. And now if we play it, tap on his face, woo, we had some, so the grouping was a little bit off. So what we have to do, we have to make sure the group is the same as this. So there's a lot of different elements that's missing. So we have the conversations. We want to make sure that's also on this artboard inside of this group. Drag this over. There we go. And as you start fixing a lot of this stuff, that'll all kind of fix itself. And then we have, as you can notice, we have the chat bar at the bottom, slides up and slides down. So those are a few things that you can definitely do in Adobe XD that you really can't do in Photoshop. Things like overlays, things like auto animate, prototyping, cool stuff, and fixed elements, which I'm not sure, again, why it's not showing. Usually they're right at the side here. There's a fixed element or fixed element button, and you'll be able to just fix it in place. So when you're scrolling, it won't move. So I hope that helps a lot of you. I'm really excited to see what you all come up with. And make sure to go to, one more time, behance.net/dailycreativechallenge. Grab today's template, which if I refresh, scroll down, here it is, mobile chat application. Grab this template. Even if you don't have Photoshop, you can drag it directly into Adobe XD and make sure to submit it with the hashtag XD Daily Challenge. And I will be back tomorrow morning with day number 6 of the XD Daily Challenge. And we're also having a UI and UX week. I'll be here with Chris Cannon, and Kevin Lee will be here with, oh, here's the schedule. Thank you, Paco. And we have, so Andrea Hawk and Daniel White, also known as Dansky, will be here with Kevin Lee. I'll be here with Chris Cannon at 11, and then we have Johnny Vino back with Kevin Lee at 1. So I hope to see you all throughout this entire week, and we'll see you tomorrow.